Yes.
Yeah. Fans, we're back for the third and final segment this week of Sports Chat. And we talked about, we talked with Rodney and his players. Talked a little bit about Campbell County and their matchup this week, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff going on, especially in college sports in the SEC. This week, Campbell County goes to play the Seymour Eagles. Seymour, they're in Sevier County. They won 3 games last year. It should be a good opening game matchup for the Cougars.
Seymour averaged 13 points a game. I'm not sure how much their offense may have improved or not. But Campbell County looked pretty good on offense once they got things rolling against Oneida at the Jamboree this past Friday.
And I'm pretty sure Campbell County had at least one cornerback out. I did not see Bo Ferris there, and I think in the preseason stuff he'd started.
They had a bad first offensive series. They tried to run what looked to me like a halfback pass play where Tuffy tossed it to Ethan Miller. Oneida had that sniffed out and blew it up in the backfield. And that killed their momentum on their first drive of the game. But after that, they moved the ball well, and it was only a quarter to work with, so you don't have much time. But they managed to score 2 touchdowns, and unfortunately had a muffed extra point attempt, and missed that. Had to go for 2 in the waning seconds of the game, and came up just short of the 2-point conversion.
Literally on the end zone. Tuffy's helmet crossed the end zone, but the ball did not.
I think they're going to be able to score some this year, and once their offense gets in sync during the games, they'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I've got high hopes. I'm really hoping. I'm really hoping that Campbell County travels well this week. I'm looking forward to hear Josh Parker call the game, because I know we can pick up Josh while we're up at the Gap. Josh is always a pleasure to listen to, and a lot of fun to ride with the basketball game. I'm looking forward to another year of him calling the games.
Seeing that offense encouraged me. The defense struggled a little bit against Oneida, so they had to start a cornerback. They gave up a big pass play, which that shows in that case. And, they gave up a couple of big run plays, but they actually finally got a few stops against Oneida and managed to get the ball back. It's the first quarter of the first game situation they've been in under the new coach. They performed very well. Oneida's a really good team usually, well coached. They execute well. I thought they did pretty well for being their first time out.
So I said high hopes for the Cougars this coming Friday night. Now, a lot of talk about SEC expansion. At one point, Texas A&M was set to join the conference next season.
It came out today. They had the presidents of the league had a meeting. There was initial reports that they voted 11-0 to approve Texas A&M entering the conference. Since came out that they've decided to put a hold on expansion for now. And the reason being, apparently, they didn't deny that there was going to be expansion in the future, but the reason being, the Big 12 is threatening to sue the SEC for tampering with its contracts by speaking with Texas A&M. So the SEC's backed off. A&M, they're waiting on A&M to have a vote to leave the conference on Monday. And apparently the Texas legislature is trying to get involved and impose their will on it.
Of course, because that should be their big priority.
They're funded by the state.
That's true.
Public body, and unfortunately, and this is the reason Texas A&M is leaving the conference or wanting to. Austin's the seat of the government. Austin's where the University of Texas is at. What the University of Texas wants, it tends to get in that conference and in the state, in the Texas legislature.
There's a lot of big Texas schools in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of big schools in Texas, and really, the old Southwest Conference collapsed because it was 7 Texas schools and Arkansas. And the University of Texas generally tried to lord itself over the rest of the conference, and the other Texas schools accepted it, but Arkansas wouldn't, so they went for the SEC. Texas is doing that again. Texas got this deal with ESPN to have their own network that the rest of the conference doesn't get to share. So suddenly Texas's revenue is $15 to $20 more million a year than every other team in the conference.
That seems pretty unfair to that just seems unfair to even the other Texas schools, let alone the rest of the conference.
And the other Texas, that's why Texas A&M is big enough in itself to attract the SEC. And the SEC, frankly, if Texas A&M wants to come, they would be absolute, utter fools not to take. I mean, complete foolishness not to. The Pac-10 added Colorado and Utah. They renegotiated their television contract, and it almost tripled the amount of money per team when they did that. And that's adding Colorado and Utah, you know, it's two
Not big markets.
small market areas. Texas A&M is between Houston and Dallas.
I really, honestly,
Two of the top 10 TV markets in the entire country. Houston, I think, is third, and Dallas is like sixth in TV markets.
and I'll say this, because
And that's not counting San Antonio and a few other big cities in
as non-SEC footballers, I've always enjoyed watching Texas A&M. And if they do join, at some point, and like you said, they'll be in the Western Division, so who knows when they'll actually play. But when UT plays Texas A&M, I want to make a trip to College Station, Texas.
there.
It's a great football environment. It's Texas.
You know, they fit in well with the SEC. They're close to LSU and Arkansas. They actually have played, LSU and Texas A&M used to play every year for almost 75 years.
Was that the one that was called the Red River Rivalry? Or was
No,
that,
that's Oklahoma and Texas.
do they have a name for theirs?
I think they did. I can't remember it right now, but they played every year. That was the big rivalry game because LSU and Texas A&M were relatively close together. And of course, Arkansas was in the Southwest Conference with them, so they had a 75, 80, 100-year rivalry going with them as well. So they have natural rivals. Their stadium seats 84,000 people. That's an SEC-sized stadium. 20 million people or whatever, 25, 30 million people in Texas. Gigantic market. The SEC's entire market's around 60 million people. So that increases it by 50% just adding that school.
And here's a thought too. From a recruiting standpoint, even for other SEC schools, to have the exposure of the SEC schools coming into playing Texas, that opens the Texas recruiting market up more.
Right. I mean,
Football is king there.
if you leave Texas to play somewhere else, you can say, hey, we're going to be playing near your hometown in a couple of years. So we're going to be playing down there at Texas A&M. Come to our school. It'd be even bigger advantage for the West. But, you know, the East teams will still get some benefit from it. And plus, every team will get more money from it. And money drives the wagon in college athletics. It drives you to upgrade your facilities, spend more on recruiting, everything you need.
And let's be honest, if they expand to Texas A&M, even if they don't the next year, they're gonna add more than that.
They're going to add at least one more team, and some say up to 3 more teams. And, you know, eventually it's going to happen. You want to be in the prime position to get the best teams possible, and the SEC is right now. That's why they'd frankly be stupid not to take Texas A&M.
And we talked some of the other teams, obviously Virginia Tech and
Virginia
Florida
Tech,
State are on that list.
There's rumors going around constantly about it. Some say the SEC does not want a school in its footprint already. If you're already in a state with an SEC team, they don't want to expand because it's not really giving themselves a new audience. Some say that, others say that there's a voting block that banded together of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. That you have to have 9 votes to approve a new member. And since there's 4 of them, that leaves 8 other votes, that each will agree to block. Georgia will block Georgia Tech with those consent. South Carolina will block Clemson, Florida, Florida State.
Kentucky, Louisville.
And Kentucky will block Louisville. That's a rumor that goes around too. I'm not sure why that would be, because Tennessee has 2 teams, Alabama has 2 teams, and Mississippi has 2 teams. Not sure why the others should get exclusive rights to only have 1 team from their state, but that's a rumor that goes
See, I would love to see Georgia Tech come back to the SEC.
A lot of people would. Me, I would rather see North Carolina State, something like that, or Virginia Tech or Virginia come into the league if they're going to expand in the East. Those programs, frankly, are solid programs, but they're generally not great programs. Virginia Tech, a lot of people say, oh, well, if Virginia Tech played the SEC every year, they're going to win 7, 8 games. And frankly, right now, unless something's proven different, Virginia Tech is Frank Beamer. They've never had success without Frank Beamer. And he's getting, when he retires, who knows what kind of success he's going to
No,
have. They never recruit well.
I tell you, I like Beamer. Out of all the coaching clinics I went to, his was one of the most informative. He came and was the guest at UT. His son was a graduate assistant at UT.
They have some good teams. They're never great. I mean, I know they beat Tennessee a couple of years ago in the Peach Bowl, but frankly, that Tennessee team probably should have never made a bowl game.
Who doesn't beat Tennessee in the Peach Bowl,
And
it seems like?
Virginia Tech was something like 10-2, really good. I mean, they play in the ACC. It's a weak. They got beat by a 1AA team last year, and still ran the table in the ACC basically. So, Virginia Tech's always been one that will schedule a bunch of weak out of conference teams, and they play in an easy league and get a lot of wins that way. So they've had one recruiting class in the top 25 since 2008. The last 4 recruiting classes, only one in the top 25. They're not that big of a threat that I would worry about them just coming in and dominating the East by any means. The East is always going to shake out over time. It's Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia, with the occasional team like South Carolina that rises up and has a couple of good years. Those 3 are always going to be the 3 best teams in the East.
We were talking about expansion, as far as money goes, as far as all that goes, it's got to happen.
I mean, you can't afford to fall. Right now, the SEC went from the 1st in revenue to 3rd in revenue among the big conferences.
Simply because of the Nebraska move and the Pac-12 expansion.
And the Pac-12 expansion. And Texas, who's just into itself now like Notre Dame, I think that's Texas' ultimate goal, is to become an independent team because they love their Longhorn network. They're very centric on them. They don't care about anybody else in their conference. You never really hear that out of the SEC or even the Big Ten.
No, I mean, I would say Alabama fans, not my favorite people in the world, but pretty strong fan base. You never hear about the Crimson Tide network.
No, I mean,
matter of fact, you don't really see when another team plays an SEC team in a ball game for a championship, the crowd starts chanting SEC. I mean, that doesn't happen in other places.
I'm personally not one that's going to do that because I really hate the rest of the SEC. Every other team in it, I wish they could all lose every game. Wow, it was possible. It's not possible. I wish they would. But you don't see the behind-the-scenes power mongering by any team like you do with Texas and with Ohio State and Michigan to some extent.
And honestly, you would think you would expect that out of Florida and Alabama, but they don't.
No, it's just the SEC functions really well as a unit together, and they stick by each other. If it was that way, honestly, they would have kicked out Vanderbilt long ago.
That's true.
And possibly even both Mississippi schools, because they don't really have the facilities and everything that you look for in a team now. Yeah, that's the big thing that any expansion is going to look at. It's not just TV sets, because some people have said Maryland, the football culture doesn't fit with the SEC in Maryland.
No, I don't see. I've heard that, but I don't see them as a fit.
I mean, it's not just about markets. Texas A&M brings everything you could want to the table. Like I said, they've got their big traditions, their 85,000 seat stadium. Frankly, Maryland really doesn't bring anything like that. West Virginia, they've got a pretty good football standing. They're a little bit far north though, because they're right there around Morgantown's located right around the Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Ohio triangle area. Don't really scream SEC league.
No,
I mean, most of West Virginia state culture is more reflective of, especially Eastern Kentucky and East Tennessee and Southwestern Virginia and everything.
But as far as their football culture,
their location is not quite the same. Virginia Tech would be a good fit. It's in Southwestern Virginia. They got pretty good facilities. Like I said, I don't think there would be a threat to the powers in the East. Florida State, on the other hand, it may be a threat to the powers in the East because
Florida State very well could be.
And they went for years, and they were Florida's only loss a lot of seasons. And they're a powerful program and in a good location. I wouldn't care to see them come into the East. It wouldn't bother me any, but apparently Florida
Just highly opposed. Now, to shift gears a little bit, the preseason is now underway for the NFL. And as far as some locals maybe, the Titans won last night.
Yeah, personally, I don't take any stock at all in the results of preseason games because they're just not generally reflective of anything that's going to happen during the season. The big wild thing, first time in maybe that I can remember, Peyton Manning did not start for the Colts.
That's true.
And it's a preseason game, it doesn't count against his starting record, but even he usually would start every preseason game.
Even if he just played a series.
Yeah, I mean, he usually would just play a series in the first game. Or maybe the first quarter of the first game, but he didn't play his neck's injured. He may not play at all in the preseason, maybe toward the last game though.
And, how does that, I wonder, affect the Colts? I mean,
Oh God. I mean, as far as it goes for him playing, I think they'll be fine because he's worked with the same guy for so many years.
right.
Maybe a little rust at first, but if he happens not to be able to play, the Colts quarterbacks were terrible in the preseason game. They got beat 33-10, I think. Had like 60 yards passing between the two of them. Yeah, they're doomed without him. If you're a Colts fan, but Dallas won. I was happy that they won.
Pretty pleased to see Dallas win. And again, like I said, it's
It
preseason.
has no meaning. I mean, if you come out and go over in the preseason, you're probably not going to be a good team. And if you actually go undefeated in the preseason, you're probably going to be a good team. But I saw it go both ways. Back when Dallas was winning the Super Bowl and went to the Super Bowl so many times in the 90s, they would be 2-2 in the preseason. I think one year they were 1-3, something like that. And on the other hand, you have New England a lot of years will go 4-0 in the preseason. They usually end up being a good team in the year.
And honestly, the preseason, from a fan's point of view, I mean, it's just your way of getting back into the swing.
The other thing, the Titans are trying to get Chris Johnson back into camp.
Every year.
They promised to make him the highest paid running back in the league if he would just come to camp. And the problem with that, one of their defensive backs, they made the same promise to him, and then it made him such a bad offer that he walked out. So their general managers looked at it as a bit of a liar and not really to be trusted. So I don't think you'll see Johnson in camp without getting the offer first.
Right. He would probably have to see the pay. And that is big for him not to be in camp. Simply because he's not getting any reps.
He's the best player on their team. And, if they're going to have any success at all this year, they better have him back in the backfield. I mean, running backs are easily replaced, but running backs of his caliber aren't that easily replaced.
No, I mean, he is the elite type running back.
I can't blame him for not trusting the guy because, like I said, the guy, his name's Kevin something. He's known to a lot of players to get him to come to camp. And, I don't blame him for holding out for that part of it. I guess I don't know if he deserves to be the highest paid running back in the league. He's probably not the best one. He's close.
I'd say he's a top five.
I like Adrian Peterson just as well as him. Arian Foster, who played for Tennessee, had a super dominating season last year and probably doesn't make anywhere close to what any of those guys make.
Now, I mean, Arian Foster is one of those great stories of bounced around practice squads until he finally got his big break. And, I was glad to see him.
Arian was always built well. He did a good job at Tennessee. He had a little bit of offensive line issues, and his big thing at Tennessee was he had those just crucial fumbles that cost us some games, or it really hurt our chances to win games. And he got a bit of a stigma from Tennessee's perspective of struggling to complete the deal, down around the goal line a lot and having those fumbles. But overall, you look back at his career, it's like he was vilified more than he should have been. It's like Casey Clausen. A lot of people, for whatever reason, don't like him. God, I would have loved to have had Casey Clausen back any year since he left. The guy went on the road and he won games. He beat Florida in the Swamp twice. That's just what he did. He won games. And I think he was something like 7-1 against Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, or something along those lines combined.
You really can't ask for
The
that.
only loss he had to any of them was the big Florida rain game where somehow the snap got fumbled about 14 times. But, people vilified Casey and said he was arrogant. I met Casey. He was very nice.
My 2 meetings with Casey Clausen, he seemed like a nice, average guy.
I don't understand what people's issue was with him, but I would love to have had him back. And You know, I think Tyler Bray's got a good shot at being a quarterback on his level.
Oh, I like Bray a lot. He's got a lot of upside.
Derek Dooley said yesterday that we want to become a passing team that focuses on some big plays in the passing game. You know, we've got those Rick Rogers and Hunter, great wide receivers to go down the field.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that'll free up your running game. But I'm just hoping that he means that, because I'm really hoping our era of it's 3rd and 8, let's throw a 3-yard pass and hope that the receiver can run for 5 yards over 4 people and get the first down is over. Because we did that way too much for the last 15 or 16 years.
Yeah, 3rd and long is so crucial, and we didn't do well at all in the last couple of years.
I can understand not getting a 3rd and long because it's tough to get. But the fashion that we used to try to do it in, where you throw the ball out to the wide side of the field and hope your wide receiver can break 5 tackles to get it, never sat well with me. And Dooley says we're doing away with that. And, you know, hopefully he sticks to his word. I still expect we're going to be a run-first team, but he did say he wanted to be a down the field, big play, explosive.
And of course, you know, being a run-first team with an experienced running back like Tarin Poole,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of expected. And of course, Rajon Neal adds another wrinkle to that.
Yeah, and
Both as a receiver and a running back.
well, here Martin Lane, Dooley's been praising him a lot in practice, a freshman from Florida. He's a really good, or I think he's from Georgia actually. He's a really good, solid running back. And I think that's why they moved Rajon Neal out to the slot some. I expect all 3 to get quite a few carries. Poole will get the workload for the most part, as long as he's being reasonably successful. I think our offensive line is going to be improved this year. You know, I still say that we're going to be in that 7 to 9 win range, and 1 win on either side. If we won 6, I wouldn't be blown away. If we won 10, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, but I would be somewhat surprised. But I think 7, 8 wins probably.
And you know, with the turmoil the program's been through, that ain't bad.
You know, I look to 2012, and essentially we're going to have a very veteran, 2-deep roster all across the board.
You know, I mean, so much of that team's still freshman, sophomore.
Now, it's 70% of it's freshmen and sophomores right now. You know, there'll be juniors and sophomores after that, and you know, if we'll probably lose James and Jackson early to the NFL after this year, and maybe a couple other guys should have something happen to them. But in 2012, we should be pretty well loaded, and we're going to have Florida at home. We're going to have Alabama at home, so that'll help that too. You know, I'm not giving up on this year by any means. We should have some exciting football coming up. But
2012 is going to be the year.
I think 2012 will be back in the top 20.
Also, for Dooley, for this year compared to last, the kids they know the program now. They're more familiar with this program than they were last year going into the season. So I think they have a pretty good season ahead of them. I think some good football.
Last year, even the veterans on the team, that was their 3rd system in 3 years.
Right.
This is the first time that anybody on the team really has had the same coach 2 years in a row.
Yeah, this is the first time they've had consistency. So it's
you know,
been this time. So
I've got pretty high hopes. Our offensive line looks pretty solid. So, you know, the defense, linebackers are a little thin. Defensive line's still a little thin, but it has a shot of being okay. You know, I'd be really happy if we have right there in the middle ground and we win 8 games this year. If you go 8-4, you're back on the borderline, being in the top 25 again. You're going to a bowl game. You know, that would be a successful year for me this year.
sounds good.
Well, fans, I think we're going to wrap up Sports Chat for the week. We'll shoot Wrestle Talk shortly and have it up for your viewing pleasure. And we'll see you with some exciting high school football reports next week.